YouTube. Welcome back to the Bison Workshop. I wanted to show something here that I kind of had an idea that was what the problem was. Basically, this dial indicator right here that adjusts the up and down for your Z-axis, this knob, when I went to go to a thousandths, I've set this to 0, and then I'll set this to 0, and then I went one mark. Now each mark should 1/1000th, as far as I know. Now I've got the dial set to 0, or and then the indicator set to 0. Now watch, when I go to the very next mark, I was expecting it to be 10/1000ths, but check this out. I'm going to the next mark, what? That's saying 60/1000ths. That's back to 0. Alright, and my dial is at 0 on my Z-axis. And then there's my next mark. And now I got a little further to go. Alright, according to the dial indicator, each mark stands for 60/1000ths. Unless I'm viewing something wrong, that's what I see. Just about 60/1000ths, 58/1000ths. That's a pretty hefty cut. And I tested it on this piece of metal, and yeah, it's cutting just a little bit too heavy a cut. So I'm not real sure how I would change that and make it so that this will indicate in thousandths. Now on the side of it, it says, it's got a letter U, and it says equals, got an equal sign, and then it says 1.4. I don't know what that means, but that seems to be a pretty heavy cut for each mark. So if anybody's got any ideas of what's going on here, I mean, do you change the gears inside of it, or what? So that means that I would have to go and use an indicator all the time. Use a dial indicator. So it looks like I'm going to have to figure out a way to put a dial indicator here so that I can sit here and watch the where it goes when I go to the dial. So if I was to take that back to 0, alright, take that back to 0, that means I would have to use a dial indicator every single time. So let's say I wanted to go 10/1000ths. Alright, right there's 10/1000ths. And that's not even a quarter of a mark. So this dial on this Harbor Freight it's a Harbor Freight t5980. Don't go by your dial indicator, or you're going to break some bits or something. So that's just one problem I found that I need to address. Alright, let's take this and put it back up here where it belongs, where it starts, and undo that. Now here's another thing that I want to address on this. And this jaw, I mean, this could be a fairly decent vise, which came with this mill. The problem that I came up or found on this was, let me turn this out here and I'll show you what we have going on here. I don't like this handle either. I'm thinking about changing this handle. That sucks, having to use these little things all the time to make it work. And I'm trying out my Wi-Fi right now. I'm using Wi-Fi on my camera, and it's got a kind of a really late, it's got a late reaction. So 1, 2, 3, 3-second delay. Anyway, it's kind of funny. So what I found here, let me get back to the task at hand here and stop getting sidetracked. On this vise, it, like I said, it's not a bad little vise. I kind of like it. It's compact, and it's run off of a Gibbs system, which usually your Gibbs are your better choice as far as strength, and you can adjust your looseness out of it. But they took and didn't finish this ways out to the end. So let's say I wanted to put a block in here, and I wanted it up like that, and use these bad boys to set my work up off of the, it's up like that. So that well, if I was to do this, this one here is not, it's going to fall down in that hole, and it's not a very good hole. So there's no way that I can use these kind of guides to hold my work up off so that it's up past this. So what I'm going to have to do is make a new set of jaws for it. I'm going to have to make a thick one here on this side, which is what this piece of metal was going to be used for. That's why I started milling it. I was going to mill out a new vise jaw to put in place here. And that gave me the chance to check to see what each one of these lines meant or represented, and 58 thousandths for each mark. That's a lot. So I'm gonna have to make a thicker set of jaws, and I'm actually thinking this one's not going to work, because I'm going to have to take this one off, I'm going to take this one off, and make this one work for here, because it's just a little bit thicker, which ain't no big deal. I can handle that. And then I'll have to make a wider one. Of course, this is not the piece I'm going to use, but to give you an idea, I'm going to have to make a wider one here. Now that's going to cut out. Let's see how far I can go before this thing stops. Right there is where it stops. And that's another thing I need to make. I need to make a stop. So let's say that was there, and this would be there. I would still have a roundabout 2¼ inches to work with, and that'll get me out far enough that I can use my spacers, which these are old junky spacers I just found laying in something. I took it off of something else. As you can see, they got holes in them. So that's another problem that we're going to try to address. Alright, another issue that I wanted to try to address, back here, this motor, see if I can get in a better place to point. Right here on the motor, this pin is threaded to adjust this. Alright, and I found that when I was trying to adjust the belt, I couldn't get a wrench in underneath this. So I want to try to make a piece to go on here that has the nut on the top that goes in and grabs. I don't know how this would work, but my theory is to make a sleeve with a washer type on each side of the sleeve, so but one of the sleeves is going to have to be removable. I can just take a wrench up here and loosen it or tighten it. Well, tighten it, loosen it. I don't know if you guys can see that. See, yeah. Alright, I want to address that. That'll make it easier to tighten the belt or get it adjustable, because you just can't get a wrench underneath there on that. Another thing I wanted to address, and I'm not real sure how I'm going to address that, is the chuck. Let's say that I wanted to take this and put it on there. Alright, it's slid on there. The only way to do that is I have to remove the side panel to the pulley, which I've already showed in the other video. I have to remove this every time I want to take the chuck off, and it seems like I have to take that chuck on and off a little more than I was thinking in the original episode. So in order to do this, I have to reach over here and hold the pulley, and that's going to get old with me, because first of all, if anybody's been following me, I have no patience, and I just don't like doing more than I actually have to do. You can achieve the same job and do less work and do just as good a job as if you worked your ass off. I don't like working my ass off. I don't like having to take stuff apart to just do it and putting a chuck on. So we're going to try to figure out how to do that. Now those are just some of the videos that's going to be coming up for the Bison Workshop. And now I wanted to go over some other things here that I got. I went yesterday, instead of waiting on him to bring them to me, I went ahead and decided to just go on and go get them. All the tools that came with this mill. I'm going to have to make a chuck key, and when I got my Grizzly, for some reason they threw in an extra chuck key. I had 2 for the 3-jaw chuck and 1 for the 4-jaw chuck. So I'm going to take, since I didn't get a key for this, even when I went to go pick up the parts that came, or the tooling that came with this originally, the key wasn't there for this chuck, and it's a smaller than the 4-jaw chuck that's on my Grizzly. So we're going to take this key and grind that down, probably mill it. I'm hoping I can mill it. I'm going to have to make some parts in order to mill this so that it'll hold this. You know, round stock's a little hard to hold. So we're going to try to either file it until it's down to the size it needs to be, and then I'll have an extra chuck key, or have a chuck key for this. I don't know if this is the chuck key. It makes no sense because it's a female, not a male, unless there's a piece that went in there that's missing. That's the only thing I can think of. But regardless, that's kind of a shabby looking chuck key. But it don't fit because this is female and this is female. Unless it had, well, like this thing here that went in there and fit tight. Now that's a good possibility that that's what the deal was. But regardless, I've got this one. I'm going to make this one work for this chuck. Alright, that'll take care of that problem. Alright, so if anybody knows what that was supposed to have originally been for, I don't see anything on here that takes a square socket. That would actually probably fit the Atlas lathe I had at one time for the for all the square bolts. So that was one of the things that I got. Then I found these in the box, and these are little tiny cutters. I thought this was kind of interesting. Never seen cutters like that, but the cutters for that are that right there. Little teeny tiny, probably 1/8 inch, looks like, maybe more. Tiny cutters that you can grind and put in there. I thought that was interesting. So I got this one. I got this one, and they must have turned wood with that thing because that's got wood shavings on it. I got this one here, which is 3/8, and this one's 1/4. And this one, and they're marked. See, this one's marked with an S, like in Sam. This one is marked with an L, like in Larry. And then I got this little bad boy, which is a boring bar. And I thought this was cute as hell. It's got a split square piece on it that when you tighten it down in the tool post, squeezes that and holds that pole and or rod in place. And it's got 2 different boring bars, one on each end, so you can kind of reverse those and use them for different things, different applications. That was a pretty interesting boring bar to have. So this is just another thing that I get to add to the Bison workshop tooling. Alright, then this came with it, and I do have the piece for that. It came in the box. It wasn't there before. I had to take one off of that old cheap one I had. And it's supposed to have this in the top of it, but when I had to take and rob the one out of my other one, my quick change that I bought, that piece of junk from China, I just took the stud out of it, and it was longer, so I'll take and put the original stud back in it, and then this screws down in there and then tightens it up. So, and that's a quick change. Wow, that thing's tight. Now I got 2 of those quick change blocks. Got that one. And then I got this one. They need cleaned up a little bit. Made it look nice again and oiled. So I got 2 of those that hold the tool post. and then your boring bar goes in there just like that. I think that's just, I'm amazed at the way that looks. Alright, then gave me a bunch of Allen wrenches. Then he gave me like these. They might be Harbor Freight, 1/4 inch, paint's falling off of them. Got 3 different one of those. So we got all those. And then we got 2 more of these little tiny high-speed steel bits that you grind, which we've already established I'm not very good at. Got another one. So we actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these little high-speed bits. Then check this out. This is the tiniest cutter that I've ever. That's a cutoff blade. I'm not sure which one that goes into. It must go into one of these right there. This one here goes into this. So this is your cutoff. I think this is just. It's actually cute how small that thing is. And there's the cutoff blade. This must have been for a really tiny lathe or something. See? A little cutoff. So then I got all the Allen wrenches. And I think that's pretty much it as far as what I can remember right now. So I'm going to pick which one of these I'm going to tackle first, and it's probably going to be a way to unscrew this without having to take the panel off. There's an idea that was brought to me by Crafted. If I understand the way he was talking about it, is maybe drilling a hole in the side of this, right at the top side, and run a hole through the pulley. I really don't want to do that. Since I'm not going to be putting anything long through there, it's a good possibility that I can do a collet type deal and make a handle so that I can hold the end of it and put in the other side of it, because it's got a through hole all the way through it, just like regular lathe, and it looks like it's probably about 3/4 to an inch. Yeah, 3/4. I got a 3/4 inch hole. I could probably take and make a piece to go in it that it sort of resembles how you would expand an exhaust pipe. It would have a nut on or a bolt on the inside of it, and have some sort of a wedge on it, so that when I put that in there, I can, with a sleeve on it that has a hole for the bar to go in. That way, if I ever want to do or take this off, I just stick my bar in there and loosen this up and take it off. Because I really don't want to drill no holes. I don't want to cut this thing up. I like things to stay original. I don't like messing things up like that. So it's already bad enough that I'm going to have to drill a bunch of stuff for right here to put a dial indicator, which that's not a big deal. That's actually a pretty decent upgrade. And then that will probably be the first job. So that's going to conclude the jobs that I want to do for this lathe. And now I was also thinking about retrofitting motors on this. I want to make automatic feed, and I can do automatic feed. I've got this motor that came out of a refrigerator ice maker, and it does run slow, and I'm going to do some testing on it to see if it will run with a variable speed switch, like a dimmer switch. If I can use a dimmer switch on this electric motor, which I'll show you how fast it runs. See, it runs really fast. I believe that I can make this work and put, if a variable switch or a dimmer switch will work on this, then I can adjust the speed. If not, well, unplug the whole thing. Well, my battery's dying on my phone, so I'm going to call this quits, and we'll go over that later.